Welcome everyone to another North Suburban YMCA YES call today. We have the privilege today of hearing from Eldersmart, from Marty Fogarty from Eldersmart, talking to us today about why change is difficult and how to handle it better. The goal of this presentation today is to transform the way you perceive and approach change, helping you see how it's a necessity that serves you if you understand it. The presentation will empower you to welcome new chapters in your life with open arms and forward-looking mindsets. All right, today we will be recording today's session so that it will be available as a podcast and a video later for people to watch in case you want to rewatch this, or you just caught part of this and then you can watch the rest that you didn't see later. We last about an hour for this talk. Feel free to put your questions into the chat box. Marty will try to answer them if he can, or I will try to get the question to him. Otherwise, we will have saved time at the end for questions. With that, I would like to welcome Marty Fogarty to welcome us today to talk about how change is difficult and how we can better handle it. Welcome, Marty.
Great. Thanks, Pam. Hi, everybody. So we are going to have a good session today. Excuse me. I caught a little cough over the weekend. Today's session, we're going to talk first in kind of a big picture. I'm going to give you a model of change. And once you see this model, then we're going to go ahead and do an exercise where you can actually apply the model to a change you're having in your life or experience, whether you're having it now or in the past. And then the last part of this, we're going to take that model and look at it on the bigger picture of things to give you kind of a context where you'll be able to see how normal change is and how to anticipate it to minimize some of the downsides of more challenging change. Okay, so please ask questions as we go, and we'll cover them at the end. So let's get started. Here we are. This line you see here, this is normal, right? This is normal. We're going along, everything's normal, and something happens. Normal stops, right? So think of a time in your life, everything was going along, and then something stopped or something changed. It might be, well, I was in 8th grade, and then June came and it ended. Grade school ended, right? So there's something about change. When something ends, that part of us is happy that something is ending, right? Part of us is not so happy or concerned or maybe sad about something that is ending. At the same time, when something ended, a new thing begins, right? And this is the beginning of a new chapter. And part of us is excited about this new thing about to begin. And part of us is, there's aspects of this that give us concern or we're afraid of or we're resisting, right, about this new chapter. And meanwhile, in between these two chapters is this sort of no man's land, right? In the old chapter, I knew who I was. I knew where I stood. I was grounded. I could do a thing and I would pretty much predict what would happen, what the outcome would be. For example, if we took the example of grade school, and this is my 8th grade graduation, I knew what would happen in grade school, what I would do at lunch. I knew how I got there, knew how I got home. But I don't know any of that from my new chapter, right? So here I am in this middle part. This is the transition, right? So change is the entire experience of going from the old chapter to the new chapter, and the transition is it's part of the experience, and where I was grounded in the old chapter, and someday I'll be grounded in the new chapter. I'm not grounded here in the transition. The things I used to be able to do and count on getting a certain response or a feeling or whatever, they just don't work anymore. They don't. I don't get the outcome that the former input used to give me, right? So in a transition, what used to work doesn't work the same way anymore. right? So one way to ask, am I in a transition, is to if you notice that the way I used to do it isn't working anymore, isn't giving me the outcome it used to give me, then you know that something has changed, right? So if anyone here has kids, it used to be, probably when, let's go back, I don't know, 10 plus years, you would send a postcard from a vacation, or maybe you would send a letter to someone who's at college. And if you look at today, if you send a postcard or a letter, that's sort of on the boundary of things. Much more likely and much more common today is a text or an email or an Instagram or Facebook post. There was a change that occurred, and our behavior has to change in order to get that response we want, right? So me personally, if I send my kids an email, I'm guaranteed not to hear back, right? If I send them a text, I have a better shot at hearing back. So the transition is the thing where you're saying, I expected when I did X, sent you that email, that I would get a response. You'd read it, you'd respond, etc. There's a transition. Something happened. My kids basically stopped reading emails. They don't operate off of emails, where my generation, we did. Right. So that's an example. All right, let's keep going. Now there are two types of change. There's the expected, the normal, not seen as bad or threatening type of change. And here's what it looks like, this nice blue line. Excuse me, this is graduating from 8th grade, right? This is graduating from high school, maybe. This is leaving that job for the better job. Yeah, there's still some question, there's still a transition, there's still the unknown. And so there's still a little apprehension in there. It is a change, but it's expected. Overall, the context is, this is a good thing, right? And then there's the other type of change, which is this one. And it's unexpected. The stakes are higher. It's seen as threatening, bad, risky, like it's difficult, okay? I want you to stop for a second and think in your life, you think of some expected, normal sort of changes that you've had. And then think of some life events that were unexpected or higher stakes, that were threatening, bad or risky. And just feel in your body the difference. It was the same exact experience. It was just change, going from one chapter through a transition to another chapter. But the experience is so different, right? So what happens in this change on the right is that we are unable to process what's happening. And we're unable to process it either because the risk is so high, the stakes are so high, that it sort of sets off some emotional dynamite in us, and I can't even go there, kind of thing. Or it requires an expertise we don't have, so I can't process it myself. Or it was a surprise, right? So I didn't expect that. I thought I was going, to do this thing, and then, I got arrested. Like it's too difficult for me to time-wise. It's too much of a crunch. So difficult change, this kind on the right, compared to easy change, is really a function of our ability to process, right? So I always say, as an attorney, people only call us as attorneys because they're unable to process a challenge to their well-being. There's a change they're facing. The stakes are too high. It's too complex. It's such a threat that they can't afford to get it wrong. So then they're going to bring in extra processing power, extra expertise, extra structure to help them get through it. Okay? So let's walk through an example of this model. I'm going to now ask you some questions, and I'm going to just ask you to just sit back. Let's just kind of take a couple of relaxing breaths, right? And I'm going to ask you to bring to your mind a challenging change that you faced or that you're facing now, okay? And we're going to walk through. And you know, what we're trying to do here is walk you through a very basic process to allow you to take a change you're experiencing, which we typically experience at the emotional level, and it fires off, triggers all sorts of thoughts that tend to be catastrophic and not helpful. The thoughts tend to jam up our ability to process. And therefore, out of survival, we just sort of ignore them or push them out of the way or whatever. So let's just walk through this thing and see if we can increase some of that and loosen up and create some space so that we can better process on that change. So bring to mind that change and think of before that change, there was a chapter and something is ending in that chapter. And ask yourself, you know, what's ending? What about that thing that's ending is a good thing, if anything? What about that ending causes you to have a good feeling? And then after you think of that, then what about that ending causes a concern or a fear or a sadness? So I'm going to use myself as an example. My dad had a difficult experience with Alzheimer's, and I can look at this from the place of the old normal was, you know, my dad being able to live at home, let's say. He's already got the illness, it's already there, it's already difficult. So what's ending is he's not going to be able to live at home anymore. And so that's what's ending. What about that caused a good feeling? Well, there was some relief, right? That then his wife is it's better for her. He's going to have better care wherever he goes, kind of thing, right? What about it causes concern or fear or sadness? I mean, you know, it's just horrible. That if you've experienced the elder frailty sort of decline, it's like a mourning process in action. It's just so hard, and so having an actual step like that just really makes it so sad and it's really hard. So kind of being confronted with the fact that, like, no, he's not going to be at home anymore. No, it's going to be that other thing. And selfishly, I used to be able to think, well, he's at home, I know kind of what's going on. I don't have to worry, you know, he's at home, I could call, or it's easier for me to visit him, all that kind of stuff. So that's an example of what's going on there. Okay, now, so what are some micro steps, really small things I could do to honor, acknowledge that the good feeling about what was happening? Well, it's like, look, we had a good run, like, and the good thing is I'm doing the right thing, right? We are, as a family, doing the right thing, getting him. His needs have increased. Nobody wants him to go to the home, but let's get him to the home because that's really where he's at. He's really in that chapter. We want him to be aligned where he is in the right chapter with the right care. So there's some micro steps I can take. I could talk to my siblings about this. I could talk to everybody involved here. And I could just, you know, own that this is also a normal thing. This is a normal thing. If you have this disease long enough, likelihood is you're going to be going there. Okay, what about all those downsides? What are some micro steps, really small actions that I can take to minimize all those down feelings? Well, again, I can talk to my siblings. I can work through a support group. I can reframe some of those feelings. Are those feelings true? Did I really fail here? Right? Do I suck as a son because this is happening? Should I have done more? Like, there's a bunch of nonsense coming into my head when I'm going through this. And I can use something like Byron Katie's The Work at thework, THEWORK.com. And it gives me a tool to challenge these thoughts, to not let them put me in the ditch. So what we've just done here is, in the chapter that's ending, we've just processed it. Hey, part of this is good because we're doing the right thing, etc. Part of it is bad because of whatever that unknown is. And then what are some small, very small things I can do? And just identifying them actually makes me feel better. Wait till I actually do them. It really frees up my processing. Okay, so that was just that first chapter. Let's go to the new chapter. Now, my dad, if we use my dad, but please, let's start with your change that you've got. What's beginning for you? This new chapter, what's beginning? What about this beginning? What about the beginning causes a new or a good feeling in you? What's some brightness about this new chapter? What's some possibility? And what are some concerns, some fears? What's some more dissonant darkness, minor chord kind of feeling that you might be feeling when you think about this new chapter? Some unknown, some uncertainty. So again, if we use my dad, what's beginning? He's going to live in this place. Good feeling is like, well, I guess they have a structure. They're experts. There's medical help closer. That one aide seemed nice. That one guy there, and who sat next to us at lunch, he seemed nice. That other family. So I can start to look and say, okay, maybe this is okay. There are some good things, and I can start to process those and bring them up. But then there's some things about fear, like, okay, well, he is, my dad, we used to joke, often wrong, never in doubt kind of thing. This dementia is difficult for even an expert. Like, well, how are they going to deal with that? Are they equipped? Is there going to be a problem? What about the money? How are we going to afford this? All that kind of stuff. What about his wife who was caring for him, and now he's here and she's got more driving and more that kind of stuff. So just capture these things. You have to answer them as much as just capturing them, and you're actually really fortifying yourself, and you're allowing yourself to hold chaos in a really structured way so you can organize better. Let's go to the micro steps now. Okay, so what are some micro steps, really small actions I can take about those good feelings, and I can, grow those? Well, I could find out what's the best way to communicate with this facility. Can I text you, Mrs. Caregiver? Can I, when should I check in? Or, so I could start to inquire that. I could talk to other families. What's working for you? I could look at what are some scheduling habits I could create to make it easier to connect. What are some micro steps about the bad side, the downside? Well, again, I could just talk about it with my family, my son. We could have communication. I could identify what I think are the worst parts, and I could inquire. I could bring curiosity to that to someone who can do something about it, the nurse or the doctor or whatever. Again, I'm bringing some structure to chaos. Okay. Now, regarding this change, right, the transition part, what are the emotions that are kind of coming up here when we just went through that? If you look back and say, there's a good thing about it ending, there's a not so good thing about it ending, there's a good thing and a not so good thing about it starting. Just kind of like check in And what are those emotions, that are getting, activated or lit up a little bit. And so you might say, well, apprehension, fear, fear about losing, fear about him passing away, one, fear about running out of money, two, fear about just the sadness of the whole thing. Okay, so what small steps can I do regarding these emotions, right? So then now we've gone from this thing of this very difficult change to actually, I can ask, what are some small steps? So now I'm actually processing here. I'm able to go to the feeling I have about the money, let's say. Well, that's fine. That's financial well-being, right? And who can I talk to? What numbers can I look at? What small things can I do to get clarity on that thing so I know the answer? So I stop the worry factory in my head. Sadness about his day-to-day that, he won't be at home anymore and he's going to be in this new place and it's going to be hard for him. Small things I can do about that. Well, one, I can question, will he be more? We don't know how he's going to be. It might be a little difficult to start. But what can I do about that? Again, I can communicate. I can be willing to be vulnerable about that. I could ask a question to another family that got through it. I could talk to the nurse. I could make an ally who's on the inside who can give me an insight. So that is what we've been able to do here is take this change, and for the old chapter, the new chapter, and the transition, we're able to identify these little micro steps, the smallest possible baby steps that we could take, one or two of them, and that's all we have to do. Because if we start doing that, what has happened is we're actually processing the change. The change starts to go away because you're actually processing it. You're actually getting it into your head. You're getting it from chaos into order, and then you're getting it into action and some sort of behavior. So I hope that you found that to be a good exercise, and maybe at the end you can comment or we can talk through that. What I want to do here is now let's go to the big picture, and because change is it's a fractal, right? It's that model, old chapter, change, new chapter, is repeating at the very smallest level, as well as at the largest level. At the smallest level, it's morning, it's lunchtime, it's afternoon, right? That's an example of a very small level that it takes place on. At the larger level, there's let's say a country, and then there's an election, and then there's an entirely new sort of, government in place, or set of rules or whatever, or you could have those stacked up on top of each other. Maybe there's new technology that changes things. I grew up with newspapers, right? And 4 channels or whatever. Today, it's just outrageous where it comes from. It's all over the place. And so that's an example of the big picture changes that were kind of our context for our individual smaller changes. So we're going to walk through the big picture change now. Life is just a series of chapters. And there are these major life events, right, that take us from one chapter to the next. So in my example earlier, my dad getting dementia was a major life event. It took me from one chapter where he was alive and well into this not so well chapter. And then there were several other major life events, sort of like dominoes, that took us further and further into these new chapters along the way, dealing with that disease. Now, as we go through these chapters, this picture is showing we basically zig and zag kind of through each chapter. We're doing our best, and what I want to point out and talk about is the zigging and zagging. What is it that causes us to zig and zag. Like, you know, we don't get, you know, too high or too low. We sort of have our own path we're kind of following. And I think if you look back in your life and you see how you've zigged and zagged on the path, what would be revealed is that there was actually a corridor. And I've got that marked here in the green hash marks. There's been a corridor that we've stayed in. And we may not be conscious of this going as we act and go forward. But what we're doing is we're coming back to our well-being over and over again. And we're staying in what's called the corridor of well-being. Okay. And there's actually a three-dimensional corridor because there are different types of well-being. We'll talk about that. But basically, we're zigging and zagging, trying to stay within our well-being spot, right? So let's, you know, for example, what you're seeing here is major life events occur. And notice after every major life event, how the blue line goes outside of the corridor, right? Maybe a little high, a little low, you know, that's it's happening. When that happens, we are outside of our well-being. Our well-being is, it's more than threatened. Like it's wide open. Like we are dissociated from our well-being. We've got to get back in. So when my dad had that experience of going to, you know, needing a caregiver was one step, needing to move a completely other step. Each of those, it's like life pulling me through a major life event into a new chapter. And those difficult changes, the red changes, that's when a major life event kicks us out of the well-being corridor, right? That's what's going on there. So the most difficult sort of things, if you look at the world today and recent events between nations over the last 2 years, we've had some major life events that are very disconcerting and causing us a lot of challenge at the national, international, and personal levels, right? Remember the two types of change. When we are out here in one of these red circles, we're over here on the right. It's a difficult change, right? It's not the simple one on the left. And so when a major life event threatens our well-being, it's a difficult type of change. And what that means is we're going to experience more negative feelings from leaving the well-being corridor. And we don't see as many positive feelings in the new chapter. We may not even, sometimes that transition piece is so gigantic that we don't even see that new chapter yet. So let's look at that a little closer. So here's our major life event, that black line up and down. The red circle shows where our path has taken us out of the well-being corridor. So the major life event knocks us out of the well-being corridor, right there. And now we're having a difficult change, and we're going to go through this nasty experience of figuring out how do we get back in. So we need two things to maintain our well-being. First of all, let's just look at this picture, because this is it. This is the entire game. Life's a series of chapters. There's going to be major life events. Some things are going to be awesome. Some are going to be difficult. We all know how this game ends, by the way, right? We're here for a short time. It's okay. We're also, one reason we face adversity is because it activates, powers and solutions within us, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. So it is normal that we face difficult major life events. And what we need to deal with major life events when we get knocked out of the corridor of well-being, first we need awareness, right? So first we need awareness. When we feel like we're ungrounded or threatened or unsure of what the normal is, having the awareness to go to the big picture and say, yeah, this is what it is. This is a normal thing in the grand scheme of things. It is not normal for me, but this is me participating in the grander scheme of things, and it's going to be a difficult path back in. But by knowing that, you're processing, you're already starting the process. You don't have to like it, you don't have to be okay with it, but being aware of it keeps you grounded through it. And all of us have let's say, a processor part of our brain where we're going through, we're processing, we're driving, we're shopping, we're putting things away, we're cleaning, right? Then we have an observer part of us that we're observing that we're driving, we're observing that we're taking care of things, we're observing that our coworker is in a funky mood today versus a happy mood. We're observing how we feel. So awareness is that observer piece of us, and being more in tune with that observer lens is going to help us have greater awareness. The next thing we need is a plan that has tools that they're sharing with us that can restore our well-being, that can help us re-enter the well-being corridor and get back into sync. So on the awareness front, the corridor of well-being has 3 dimensions, okay? There's personal well-being, there's legal well-being, and there's financial well-being. And realistically, if you don't have legal well-being or financial well-being, you can't have personal well-being. When I say financial well-being, that doesn't mean you've got tons of money and 0 debt. You can have a ton of debt. You can be broke. You could be bankrupt, and you could still have financial well-being. It's really more about, well-being is more about alignment and being in the chapter you're in and knowing where you're at and accepting it, not having resistance to it. And what's hard about that is that people don't, because we lack the awareness or we lack a plan to deal with it, we don't get centered when no one wants to be bankrupt. No one wants to have a lot of debt. No one wants to have to deal with that. We all want to get ahead, but that is part of modern life, that you're going to face that sort of thing. And if you're not in alignment with it, not in awareness of it, that's what's going to break your well-being. I have a giant mortgage and school loan or kid tuition or whatever it is. Yeah, that's just what it is, but I know what it is, so I'm okay with it. It's all right. I've got a plan B if worst case happens. I mean, and in plan C, there is no plan C, right? We can plan what we can plan. We can be okay with it and just let that mess be there with us without being vulnerable about it or whatever. We're still safe. But knowing that from a financial perspective, a legal perspective, then we have the foundation to have our personal well-being to be intact. So these 3 components contribute to what we describe as elder well-being. And Eldersmart is a nonprofit Illinois corporation. What we do is help families with a loved one facing elder frailty or any other elder transition issue, so that we are protecting and supporting your well-being or the well-being of your loved one. And if you've been in this situation yourself, you understand that it's not mom or dad or uncle who's going through it. The whole family system is going through these transitions when it's the elder transition. So Eldersmart supports families with the plan and the tools to re-enter the corridor of well-being for yourselves, personally, legally, and financially. So based on that mission, and I should say the reason Eldersmart exists is because of my dad, because of what I faced with him as an elder law attorney practicing for 25 years, and then to have your dad have just a horrible experience with the elder safety net. It was really just a calling for me to say, there's got to be a better way. The system's broken. And the challenge, it's okay for the system to be broken, but people don't know that the system's broken, and they go and they rely on it with open arms and an open heart, thinking that they're going to get supported when the system is too broken to support them. So that experience I had with my dad helped me see that, no, this is really about helping people to have more agency themselves and more clarity and awareness about how to get their family through that elder transition, which is really the same thing as getting through change. It's just a more specific, kind of higher stakes change. So I hope that this was helpful and informative. I'm happy to take any questions that you've got or comments. You can reach me at, if you go to eldersmart.net, there's you can schedule a call or send an email, and we'll be happy to chat through this, anything with you. You can get me directly. My direct number is 312-235-6641. Leave a voice message, and we'd be happy to dialogue with you or help answer any clarity you've got that you have a need for. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Marty. Are there any questions from the group? I didn't see any in the chat. All right, amazing. If there are any like follow-up questions or things that you think about, feel free to email me.
Yeah, I've got one. Here's a great question. So the first one is, how do you analyze processing through change if you're aging and you have a child with a disability? So this is a really great question. Let me go back here for a minute and get to a screen that might help us on this. So the question is, I'm aging and I have a child with a disability. I'm going to go back just a little bit. And I'm going to say that we're here. So we're looking, I'm aging and I have a child with a disability. So there are fears about leaving that old chapter, because in the old chapter, I am the guardian, I'm the parent, I'm the protector for my child. In the new chapter, I'm scared because I'm not going to be there. And the question is, who's going to be there? Who's going to care like I care? How are we going to pay for whatever their needs are? How can we, if I'm gone, there's no structure, right? Like there's chaos. So let's just walk through this. In the new chapter, what is it that's causing fear? I'm going to go right to that one. And it's that, well, if I'm gone, who's going to care for my child with a disability, to ensure that their dignity is honored, their safety and their health is maintained, and that they stay in their corridor of well-being. So that's the key question. That's where all that's the thing that trips and causes the overload and prevents further processing. So the good news is there's what's called the elder assessment. And the elder assessment tool asks a series of questions that allow us to essentially bring to you structure and support. All you need, the only thing separating between you and this clarity about the landscape you're in, the options you have, and how to make this next chapter as good as it can be, to honor your values, your wishes, and protect your loved one. You're so close to that answer. And essentially, Eldersmart, the way we help folks in this is there's an elder assessment. It's absolutely free. Go to the website, eldersmart.net, or call me 312-235-6641. And the assessment is going to ask all the stakeholders involved what the situation is. And then from there, we create this roadmap that basically gives you, here's the best possible outcome. Here are the steps we're going to take to get there. Here are your options. You could go option A, you could go option B. And that's the first thing that you want. Right now, you lack clarity. You lack awareness. You have enough awareness. You have enough awareness because you know I need some sort of help. You showed up to this thing. Now you need a plan. Now you need tools. Eldersmart can create those for you. Eldersmart can, and whether it's just creating that plan and that's it, you're on your own, or there's more work, or we're connecting you with experts in the field who can help, or have a relationship with your child in the future. We don't know. We don't know until you do that assessment. We get clear. So it's kind of like, hey, you call me up and say, I want to drive to New York. Like, I can get you there, but I need to know where you're at today. You know, if you're starting in San Francisco versus North Dakota, I'm going to give you different answers. But you want to get to New York, I get it. So in this case, we take the assessment. That tells us where I'm at, where am I starting? It'll reveal where we want to get to as well, and then the best path. All right, so there's one question. I got another one here. Okay, so there's that one. And then I've got another one. What's the origin of the model of change you presented? What exactly does Eldersmart do? Does Eldersmart have a financial investment team? Okay, so I guess I'm not sure of the origin of the model that I presented. This is the model. This is a thinking model to help people process through change. A lot of times what happens in change is we're overwhelmed. It's nonlinear, it's chaos. And what is needed is structure and organization and support and some certainty to help people work through through a difficult time. So that's the whole thing of the model. That's the reveal of it. Regarding the other thing, Eldersmart does not. We don't have financial advisors. It is not a financial advising team. Eldersmart exists to help people process and get clarity about the elder transition. Okay, the elder safety net in society is broken. Okay, it's not going to be fixed anytime soon. It's going to get worse, and you have to create your own network and have your own plan. That's what Eldersmart is about. It's going to create that for you, or with you, I should say. You are the one who knows what you want. You just don't know the landscape. You don't know the rules. You don't know the way through. We've helped hundreds of people, families through it. We've been through it personally. That's the whole thing about Eldersmart. And this model and this change thing, if it doesn't work for you, you can let it go. It's fine. I'm just saying, I've seen it work over and over again. Because when we're having a difficult change, it's because we're not processing. And usually we're not able to process either because of the emotions or the complexity, etc. Eldersmart is like a scaffolding. It's going to come and support you through the process. Okay. So I would say that every family we've helped kind of has their own path, because we're going to meet you where you're at. Some folks are going to have needs, other folks don't have. That's why that assessment tool is free. It gives everyone clarity, and you then are now empowered to decide which direction you want to go forward. Okay, Pam, unless we've got more?
No, thank you. I think you're getting all the questions, which is great. Awesome. All right, if there's any other questions, I did put Marty's information into the chat box. Hopefully that's the correct information for you. And yes. All right. Any other questions? Let us know. Other than that, we're done. A special thank you to Eldersmart and Marty to talk to us today. Marty Fogarty from Eldersmart, but also the Heartland Law Firm. Thank you. That concludes today's programming. Our next talk is actually tonight at 7 p.m. about bunion pain. Do you have bunion pain? Join us tonight at 7 o'clock with IBJI to talk about that. Totally different topic, but we're here for everyone. All right. The YMCA Education Series is free, open to public. Find out more about us at nsymca.org/YES. You can find all of our information there, including this podcast that will be up in about 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you at our next chat. And thank you again to Marty.
Okay, cheers all. Thank you. Thanks,
Cheers.
Pam.
Have a great day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, everyone.
That was great.
Thank you. Bye.